Okay guys, so this is my third time recording this tutorial because my audio was not recording for an entire basically 45 minutes. I don't even want to do this video anymore. Yo, what's up everybody? I am Legend, your favorite traveling musician right here on YouTube. And today's video is going to be recorded for the third time because I just spent 45 minutes wasted recording this and my audio was not even recording. So today's video is going to be all about vocal EQ and how to set up your tracks for recording in Garageband. I know a lot of you have been asking basically how I EQ my vocals in this program, and so I'm gonna make a video on how I set this stuff up. Is the audio working? Are we working now? Are we working? Thank you. So I'm going to be working with this song that I previewed on this channel earlier this week. It's so hot! Gosh! And so I'm going to show you guys how I set up my vocals and all that stuff for this particular track. So when it comes to vocal EQ, you want to treat it the same way as you do when you're mixing your vocals. Now I have a video about mixing and mastering your vocals entirely by itself. You should go check it out. Basically the same rules apply as did in that video. You want to compensate for your weaknesses and your strengths. So if this were a new project or song that you were working on, you would basically come in GarageBand, select File, New, or it would show like the menu, select that you want to start a new track or open an existing one. You select the microphone and it'll import one of these tracks here. It'll basically show this. Select this microphone, make sure that you're hearing sound from whatever audio interface you're using or recording device, and you create. Now once you do that, there are a few things that pop up. So there's a control section down here that shows your compressor, your EQ, and your sends. And then you get this menu on the side that shows basically different presets and effects that you can put on this track. Since this is a vocal track, we're going to go to voice. Now it shows a bunch of different presets that gives you different effects, different sounds based on whatever you're looking for your particular style or vibe that you're going for that track. So we have like bright vocals, classic, compress, dance, edge, fuzz, narration, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. So in my case, I really love to use compression. I love compressed vocals, so I usually select that preset and then I just tweak it based on my voice. So we're going to do that today. We select double click compressed vocal and it basically adds this squeeze down here to this control section. All of these things you're going to want to tweak based on what kind of voice you have. If you have more bass in your voice, if you have more like a squeaky, like high-pitched voice, you want to compensate for that. And in between, you know, it just all depends on your voice and it all depends on the sound that you want in your song. Just to highlight the different sections, we have the dynamics itself, so that's the compression, the EQ, lows, mids, highs, the mid frequency, which I don't really mess with, I kind of just leave it there, and then the low cut, and then we have the squeeze, which also kind of complements the compression, and then we have sends, which is the ambience and the reverb. These are like echoes and things like that, and the ambience of how your voice sounds. As I stated in the how to mix and master your vocals for free video, if you have a lower voice, if you have more bottom in your voice and your voice is really bassy and deepy, what? You want to basically turn down your lows, right? Because if you turn it up, it's going to overpower everything. The mix is going to sound horrible. Your vocals are going to sound like it's coming out of a tube. And you won't be able to understand what you're saying, and it's not going to sound good. Now I usually keep mine right around here. For me, I keep my mids right around the same level, and my highs I turn up because I don't have as much high frequency as in my voice. Since I'm a guy, I want to turn that up. Now if you're a female, or if you have a higher pitched voice, you want to turn your highs down, turn your lows up. I want to show you what each one of these things does, so that you get a better understanding. So we're going to preview this with this track here. So here's how my vocals sound according to what I EQ'd them at for the verse of this song, Blackberry Sweet.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here I don't take kindly to.
I usually start with the EQ section and then I mess with the dynamic, squeeze, and sends later. So the EQ, what I do is, like I said, I keep my lows right around here because if I turn it up too much with my voice, it's going to sound like I'm singing out of a tube.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan?
But if I keep it too low, then it sounds like it's lacking. It's not as, it doesn't have as much foundation, I'll say.
I could tell you about some things here I don't take kindly to.
And then the next thing that I mess with is my highs, because I know that is something that I lack. I don't want to turn it up too high, because even though I have a lower frequency voice, it's still, if you have it turned up too high, it's gonna, the sound is gonna be too piercing. It's gonna sound like somebody's stabbing your ears with a toothpick, and you don't want that. Your S is gonna be really sharp. Everything is gonna be really sharp, not as in tone and note wise, but as in sound. It's just gonna like sound like somebody's just. I do keep this higher as far as like the levels here, higher than my lows and mids, because those are my strengths. I turn up my weakness highs to right around here, because I like a little bit more treble. I don't want it too low though, because if I do it too low, then it's just
What you doing around these?
it's muffled, so I don't want that. Then the mids, I'll say this has the most dramatic effect on your vocals. It basically has the same effect as the lows. If you turn it down too low, it sounds like you're singing out of a tube, and if you turn it up too high, it just sounds like you're singing out of a telephone or a megaphone or a walkie-talkie or something like that. For instance, if I have it turned down way too low.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan?
Versus if I turn it up way too high.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan?
It's like I'm about to make a public service announcement, and I don't want that. So I turned it, for me as a guy, and the way my voice is, I tend to have it at the same level as the lows. But how I achieve the sound that I usually get in my songs, I keep it all the frequencies on an even playing field after, you know, I have already tweaked them. So I have to tweak them to get to that equal playing field. I do like my lows to be a little bit stronger, because I like that foundation, I like that bottom, but I don't want it to be like that. You guys know I'm not the best when it comes to technical terms and explaining things, and I just like to demonstrate how it works. I'm sorry if what I'm saying and how I'm talking is not really detailed. I don't really know how to explain it. I just know what sounds good and what doesn't, and I try my best to explain it, but it's better for me to just show it. So once we've done that, like I said, I don't really mess with this mid frequency. You can mess around with it, but for me it doesn't really do anything. The low cut has the same effect, same as the lows and mids. I'll show you what that sounds like.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here.
So if you turn it up, again, it's going to cut more of it out. If you keep it low, it's going to leave it as it is. I try and leave it at right around here, because I still want that bottom, but I don't want it to be too much. Boom, there's my EQ. And depending on however your voice is, your results will be different. Yours is not going to look the same as mine, because everybody has different voices and everybody has different preferences. So don't copy what mine shows on the screen here. Do whatever works for you. If this is what works for you, then that's great. Compression, boom, that's the next thing that I go to. The compression, the best way that I know how to explain compression is grit, in my opinion. It's not grit as in distortion, it's grit as in how punchy your vocals are and how guttered, I guess, they sound. Like, it just sounds more hard to me. It sounds more, it gives it that punchiness that I usually look for in my vocals. So if I turn it all the way down, for instance.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan?
So it sounds pretty good as it is, right? But if I turn it all the way up, you'll notice a difference in, like, when I say my D's and my P's, and even the sound of everything just kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but I'll show you. So all the way up, turned all the way up, this is how it sounds.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before, what's your lifespan?
To me, it sounds like it's more in your face, and it's what you doing around the p, like you hear the p and the d, and I can't explain this stuff. I'm self-taught, so this is the best way I know how to explain it. I can't get technical with you guys. I'm sorry. This is me. For me, I keep it right around here. Just a little bit less than half. It's not too much and not too little. It's enough to give it that punch without being overpowering and making everything sound too compressed. That's the word I'm looking for. Squeeze kind of does the same thing, but it's not in terms of like it sounding more punchy. The best way that I can describe the squeeze in GarageBand is it's basically putting all of your vocals on an even playing field as far as like volume goes and levels, without messing with the volume itself. So like if I had a lot of crescendos and decrescendos, so like this and getting louder and getting quiet and getting like things like that. The squeeze basically would make it to where everything is at the same volume and everything is heard equally. So those crescendos and decrescendos are not going to be as prevalent if the squeeze is turned up, because it's squeezing everything into just this little range right here. And no matter how loud or quiet you sing, it's going to keep it within that range. And I don't know if it makes sense, but you'll see. So right now it's turned all the way down.
What you doing round these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So that squeeze turned off. Now if I turn it all the way up.
What you doing round these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
To me, it just sounds like it's more boxed in. It's put it in this little itty bitty box, and no matter how quiet you might sing or try to sing, or how loud you might try to sing, it's going to keep it in this little range right here. So it's not going to get louder, it's not going to get quieter. I could be wrong in that, but that's just the best way that I know how to explain it and how it works for me. So I keep it at the same level as the compression usually, because to me it complements each other, the compression and the squeeze. It kind of like has a little bit of the same functionality, but it's not exactly the same. But I usually keep everything like this because I like all of my vocals to be within the same range, and that makes it easier for me to mix, because stuff is not going to be super loud and super quiet at this part, and loud at this part, quiet at this part. Everything's going to be right around the same as long as I have my mixes right. You know, everything's going to mix pretty well. And then we get to the sends. So the sends, this is the reverb and the ambience. This is all about echo and all about how it sounds, the surroundings sound, or the simulation of the surroundings. I keep this typically I'd say, what is that, a third, a fourth of the way turned up for both. If this were to be a rap song, I would basically turn my reverb all the way down, and maybe my ambience like right around here. I don't know, something like that, because I don't like my raps to sound like they're coming out of a cathedral or anything like that and have too much echo. I like my raps to be clean. But my vocals, when I'm singing, I like to turn those two things up. So just to give an example, you guys obviously know what reverb is, but if I were to turn this all the way down.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here.
But if I turn the reverb up.
Doing around these parts, man. Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So the reverb on this controls panel right here, like if you want to get a reverb that sounds really like echoey and spacious and ambient, you don't want to really use this as your reverb, because it's gonna make it sound like you're singing in a giant metal box. I just turned this up for like a little bit of emphasis on top of the reverb that I'm going to add later in this effects panel. So that's a separate thing. That you want to keep that separate. I usually keep my reverb right around here because it gives it that extra push that it needs, but not too much. The ambience, it does the same thing as the reverb, but it's like more of like your surroundings.
What you doing around these parts, man? Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan? I could tell you about some things here.
You see what I mean? So it doesn't have the same effect, but it's like a similar effect. So I try and keep these right around the same, which is just right here, to kind of just complement whatever I do. So this, for me, this is the settings that I have whenever I record my vocals. It pretty much never changes, unless I'm doing like a really ambient song, and then or just stylistic choices. It all depends. The last thing that I want to show you guys is just the effects panel of Garageband. Now this isn't so much EQ, but it is like effects that I add to my vocals. When I'm singing, I usually try and add like a little, in addition to this reverb, because as I said, this reverb doesn't sound too good, and I just use it as a complement to the actual effects panel. So I open up this pedal board right here. You can find it right here at the bottom right. Click that, and then you're going to get your compressor, mixer, splitter, like all these different things. And then we get to these added effects that I have here. I have the fuzz and the chorus turned off for the sake of this video, because I just wanted to show like the clean vocals and everything. So here, my reverb that I usually use is this spring box. So you can find it here. You go down to delay, and then you just basically would drag it over and put it right there. Now I already did that. And you got your time, your tone, your style, and your mix. So I keep my time right around halfway. I don't like the echo to go on for too long. I keep the tone pretty much turned all the way up. I try to keep the mix turned down so that it doesn't overpower the vocals itself.
What you doing around these parts, man?
You see?
Never seen you here before. What's your lifespan?
So I keep it right around 30. I don't like it too high, but just high enough so that you can barely get an inkling of it makes the difference. Trust me, it makes a difference. If this was turned off, it would still sound good, but it wouldn't sound as dynamic. I keep it right around 30. The style, I keep it here at vintage because the others, bright, resonant, all these other things, it just sounds ugly to me, so I keep it right here at resonant. What was it? Vintage. Sorry, vintage. And then if I don't think this graphic EQ is here, but if I wanted to mess around even further with the EQ, I would come to filter, drag this graphic EQ over here, boom, there it is. I just mess around with them until I get the desired sound. You know, this is to me, this is the best way to learn these programs and the best way to learn for yourself. You're not gonna break anything. Just go in there and just start fiddling around with stuff until you get a sound that you're looking for. That's how I learned. I just put stuff in there and I turn it up, turn it down, and see what changes. If I don't like it, okay, go to the next knob. Turn it up, turn it down, see what changes. Turn this up, turn it down, see what changes. Turn this off, see what happens. Turn this on, see what happens. You may not know the technical terms of it and why it does what it does. You may not know how to explain it to somebody else, much like how most of this video is turning out to be, but I do know how it works and I know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. I know where to put this knob and where to put this one. It's not about the terminology and like knowing. It's because if you put the 3 decibels down and here, that stuff doesn't matter. All that matters is you know what sounds good, what doesn't sound good, what to turn up, what to turn down, what this knob does and what this one does, and to put this here if your voice is too high, and it's all about just figuring out the stuff, man. Like me, I play piano, I play keys. If I hear a note, if I hear la, I can't tell you what note that is, but if I heard a song in that key, I can say that song is in la key, whatever the key that is. It doesn't matter. I know I just went off on a tangent, but yeah. And then once you're done, once you record all your stuff, that's how you get a sound that sounds like this.
Whether you like it or not, everybody knows. Hate trickles from the top, friends are really foes. Red and blues around the block, you don't wanna go there. Blackberries sweet, but they don't grow around here. Whether you like it or not, everybody knows. Hate trickles from the top, friends are really foes. Red and blues around the block, you don't wanna go there. Blackberries sweet, but they don't grow around here.
So I know this wasn't, as always, the most technical video. The explanations probably sucked. The terminologies weren't there. I totally get it, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that dislike this video, and a lot of professionals that'll be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's wrong. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I just do whatever sounds good to me. So I hope that I help somebody in this video. This is how I personally set up my vocals. I hope, in spite of my lack of knowledge of terminologies and specifics in the technical sides of things, I hope that you guys have learned something. As always, I just try and make the best videos possible for you guys. But anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you guys for watching. As always, be legendary, stay legendary. If you need anything else, leave a comment down below or hit me up on Instagram at IAMLXGEND, same as here. And I'll see you guys in the... No, don't say it. Bye.
Whether you like it or not, everybody knows. Hate trickles from the top, friends are really foes. Red and blues around the block, you don't wanna go there. Blackberries sweet, but they don't grow around. Whether you like it or not, everybody knows. Hate trickles from the top, friends are